During his early career, Thomas Manetta navigated the inner workings of Wall Street. He learned how many respected institutions, acting as trusted custodians of client assets, can abuse that trust by putting a firm's profits ahead of a client's best interest. Now, as an independent RIA, Thomas talks about that conflict of interest and about a new model of transparent custodians. Well, Thomas, let's start with an explanation of financial custodian and the responsibilities involved.
Sure. I think the best thing to do is just go back, not any further than I would say 100 years ago, when the first custodians were primarily banks, and you had some trust companies that were set up like Northern Trust that were catering to very wealthy families from the Gilded Age, I guess you'd say. And so that business changed after the Great Depression. There were the securities regulations of 1933 and 34 started to regulate the industry more, and you saw more banks becoming more like a brokerage firm. And then the what they call the 40 Act in 1940 tried to separate or make a distinction between investment advisors and stockbrokers. And then for the next 3 decades, you had the glory years of the brokerage firms that that some of which you still know, like Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley. There were a lot more of them that didn't survive, and there are so few of them now left. But I think the biggest change, at least in my lifetime, happened in 1975. When commission rates were floated for the first time. They call it May Day 1975. And that's when you saw firms like Schwab and Fidelity introduce this idea of discount brokerage firms. And what's really interesting about that time is that these larger brokerage firms were so arrogant that they actually raised their rates. And you had firms like Schwab that came in and cut them, not to zero, but significantly less, which was an amazing opportunity for people to begin to participate in the investment world because it was expensive by design. And the brokerage industry was dominated by men, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant men that were primarily from Ivy League schools, and it was a secular club, and you weren't invited to it. And so that regulation in the mid 70s began the democratization of financial services, which didn't really begin to trickle down to independent advisors for 25 years. The internet had a lot to do with the success of Schwab and Fidelity when people started to day trade in the 90s. And they wanted a cheaper, alternative to these brokerage firms that cost so much. And so you would go to those firms and you'd pay a lot less for commissions on trades, and that worked out well until it didn't. And then the tech crash in 2000, I think soured a lot of people. And I think that they realized that they weren't equipped to time the market and that they needed some help and they needed advice. And that's exactly when the RIA world kind of started to take off, is the early 2000s. And then again in 2008, people were reminded again about trying, maybe not doing this by yourself, but trying to get some help. And so they were looking for more and more transparency and less of this conflicted model. And that went on for Schwab and Fidelity and TD Ameritrade became the go-to places for independent advisors to custody their client assets. And it was better. It was a better option to the wirehouse. And it was a better option for the clients because, they paid less and they had more, they had an ability to see things that they wouldn't otherwise. And interestingly enough, the world is now changing again. And you have this option where independent advisors don't have to custody assets at a firm that competes against them. They can go to a place like Altruist where the only mission really is to support independent advisors who want to take care of their end clients. That's an amazing option for advisors that it seems obvious now. But when you look at it in the context of that the arc of history that I just talked about, and how it was, it was a very secular club, very difficult to get access to participate in financial services, to build wealth. That changed. And, I remember when I was a kid, my father was a stockbroker, and he said that these discount brokerage firms will never survive. Because he worked for one of these big firms.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was proven wrong. And then in the early 2000s, they said, this RIA space, it will never take hold because these institutions like Morgan Stanley, they're too large. And now that's been proven wrong. And now you have this, I think what's coming with AI and with this new option at Altruist, you have something that could transform the industry again in a very, very big way. Because if you are a broker that's still working at a wirehouse and you're giving up half your income just to be there, why would you do that? Why would you do that when you can control all your revenue? You can help people without hurting them, and you can build a legacy for yourself that you can't do at any other institution. All those options become less and less appealing, I think. I'm biased, but I happen to think that certainly younger advisors that are coming up are going to want to be owners. They're not going to want to work for one of these big institutions that forces them to have all these conflicts. So
let's jump back here a minute. I'm sorry, Thomas.
Yep.
You mentioned custody assets. What did you mean by that?
So you keep your assets at a third party. Like I said, it used to be banks 100 years ago. And then it became brokerage firms, but those brokerage firms were, there was so many conflicts within them. And then now you have, less, you have more transparency with Schwab and Fidelity, or you had in the last 20 years. And that provided a lot more transparency for clients. But again, it's just a place where you're holding all of your investments, all your cash in your investments. And that's the place that clears your trades and, offers you other financial services that can come with that. But it's supposed to be a disinterested third party. And it never was until Altruist created this model where they really don't have any ulterior motive than to just promote the advisors that are there.
With the internet, especially these days, you can go online, depending where you have your accounts, and you can see everything you have, and you can move things around. Mm-hmm. Is this the new model? Will this be sustainable?
I think it's going to become even more powerful, actually, because it won't just be a place where you can move money around and place trades, or you can see trades, or you can see everything in one place. You're going to see everything in that one place. You're going to see your bank. You're going to see your credit cards. You're going to see your taxes. You're going to see your estate plan. You're going to see everything, your liabilities in one place, so you can help manage that. And all of these things will be delivered to you in real time. So you get a net worth assessment at any time of the day, 24/7, 7 days a week. And that's really important because as people begin to live longer, as this AI promises to deliver, they're going to want to make sure that they're financially fit, not just physically fit, but financially fit. Because if your retirement looks like 40 years instead of 20 years, you're going to have to make sure that you're doing a really good job managing your money so that you set yourself up well for those years that you're no longer working.
So to me, this means that education is going to be even that much more important. You're going to need someone like an advisor you trust to help you navigate all this information.
Right. So all the information, it might be in a sense information overload. It just be like, gosh, there's just too much there to make sense of it all. But if you have kind of a steward there that has the right intentions, that has set up their business in a way that you can easily understand that they are interested in your best interest, they're interested in protecting you, and all of those other conflicts are removed, then you can start to have those deeper conversations about the things that are important to you and why they're important to you, and are you or are you not on the right track to achieving the goals that you feel are important.
Talk to me about younger advisors and Are they still going to the big names, to the wirehouses?
Yeah, I saw a post yesterday by Michael Kitces who said that, there are no real paths like there used to be into the business, like a training program at Morgan Stanley, or they have apprentice programs kind of in the RIA world, which a lot of young advisors are moving towards. But I think that the younger generation is going to seek out ownership and want to have that kind of independence. And they're going to want to work from wherever they want to work. They're not going to want to go into an office because you don't have to, Patrice. You don't have to be in an office anymore. In fact, and I was just thinking about this the other day, you really don't have to be a part of a team like you used to, because you're so connected, otherwise. Like I'm connected with so many other advisors already. And, and everyone's constantly bouncing ideas off of each other, and you're learning about, different ways to improve your business in a non-office environment. Right.
Okay.
And so it's like, I just feel like that the younger advisors will want to have that flexibility with their life and to have that kind of agency with their business. And the other things that, were important before, like finding a firm that could give you stability, that had been around for, 100 years, and that had a brand that you could align yourself with. You had to do that. That was the only way to get into the business. But then it came with all of the conflicts that were inherent in those businesses. And I think younger advisors aren't going to want it to have anything to do with them. And they're going to want to, because everything is at your fingertips. It used to be that these Wall Street firms could dominate the industry because they had all the information and you didn't. Information asymmetry. And that's what they leveraged their business on. And then the internet began to take all of that away. And now ChatGPT has obliterated it, because you can have an agentic assistant through ChatGPT that is as smart as, and increasingly smart as the years go by, that can help you with all facets of your business. I mean, it's like asking the smartest person in the office about taxes, but you have that person right here. And then you have to go down the hall for the person with estate planning, but it's right here. It's on your phone. And then so you have all of this, all this powerful, this resource that is so powerful that doesn't require you to be in a 9-to-5 office environment. So I think that's what young people will be attracted to.
But you have to make sure that the information you are getting is correct.
Yeah. And, as we've talked about, at least for now, you can see when the output is it's not human.
True.
And so, obviously it's not perfected yet. And so I think I told you before, I got involved in a master's program in January for taxation, because it's probably the weakest link of my practice, because it's so complex. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to make sure that, that I sharpened my tools in my toolkit, so that I could sense and I could see it. I could see it if the output looked wrong. And I think that people are going to continue. I think that advisors will have to do that, because if otherwise, then you're just handing over agency, all that agency that you treasure so much about your business. You're just handing it off to a computer, right? And I don't think that's valuable to the end client. But I think the history of financial services is moving in a direction that actually is going to be beneficial for everybody. It's going to be beneficial for the client, especially for new advisors who want to own their business and do the right thing. And then the custodian, if, it doesn't just have to be Altruist, but, right now that's the only one that doesn't have all these internal problems. But I think everybody wins going forward. And that's enormously valuable if people are going to live a lot longer.
True. Young investors, they don't have the background that you or I have experienced. They don't know that there were times when you didn't know what was happening with your assets. They can see it now. Do you think that makes them better investors or lazier investors?
I mean, I can't answer that without bringing up Robinhood.
True.
You know,
I didn't think of that.
I would have to default to. I mean, I just think that's such a seductive platform for young investors and especially young men, because it's a gambling app, right? I mean, it's just gambling, and that's what they did during the pandemic, and that's why Robinhood was so successful. And I don't think that people understand the difference between Robinhood and, say, Altruist.
That was GameStop, wasn't it?
All of it, GameStop. Yeah. There were a number of different meme stocks that were, high flyers until they weren't, and people made fortunes and lost fortunes. It was just gambling. I mean, that's literally what they were promoting. What's crazy about it is that they came up with the technology for that platform, and it was so easy to use it. And a backstory, and I'm not positive of this history, but I think it's somewhat true, is that Robinhood and the founder of Altruist, he found that platform to be so revolutionary. He wanted to have the same thing, but he wanted to do it for the right reasons rather than gambling. And so that's how Altruist kind of was created. And they have all this amazing technology that they're about to unleash with all these new tools with AI. And it's going to be exciting because next week we're going to have him on and we're going to talk to him about it.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. All right. Well, any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
I hope that more advisors try to, do some more research about the way that the industry used to be, because there is this kind of progression. If you look at it on a timeline where things are getting better and not worse. And a lot of times all you can hear in the noise is all the bad things that are happening out there. But there is this possibility that, in the not too distant future, say 18 to 24 months, this industry could change in a way that would be unrecognizable today, and in a good way, in a way that benefits everybody. So I think you get there before it happens. I think you can help yourself to see these possibilities by just understanding how far we've come in a very short amount of time. If 100 years is a short amount of time. Yeah.
And technology made it happen.
Yeah.
Well, helped it happen. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I think the technology but that's the part that, that where a firm like Altruist has set themselves up for the future, where a lot of these legacy institutions, they can't change. They're like massive cargo ships, and they can't change direction. They can't pivot, and they're going to have to pivot, because if all of these AI tools are going to be held under one umbrella, you better have the right infrastructure to do that. And right now they don't. So the firm like Altruist is really going to benefit from that. And again, we're going to talk about that in a lot greater detail next week.
Fantastic. Well, Thomas, how can people reach you if they've got questions?
You can email me, thomas@manettawealth.com. My website is manettawealth.com. We have a YouTube page set up for this podcast, Behind the Curtain Finance. Please subscribe. And if you'd like to reach me or text me, 415-640-2121. And
as Tom said, follow, subscribe to his podcast. That way you're going to know when a new show is ready for you. And of course, share it with others. I'm Patrice Sikora, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Curtain Finance. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.manettawealth.com or give us a call at 415-640-2121. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Manetta Wealth. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Copyright 2025. This content, which contains security-related opinions and/or information, is provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon in any manner as professional advice or as an endorsement of any practices, products, or services. There can be no guarantees or assurances that the views expressed here will be applicable for any particular facts or circumstances and should not be relied upon in any manner. You should consult your own advisors as to legal, business, tax, and other related matters concerning any investment. The commentary in this post, including any related blog, podcasts, videos, and social media, reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of the Manetta Wealth Management employees providing such comments and should not be regarded as the views of Manetta Wealth Management LLC or its respective affiliates, or as a description of advisory services provided by Manetta Wealth Management or performance returns of any Manetta Wealth Management investments client. References to any securities or digital assets or performance data are for illustrative purposes only and do not constitute an investment recommendation or offer to provide investment advisory services. Charts and graphs provided within are for informational purposes solely and should not be relied upon when making any investment decision. Past performance is not indicative of future results. The content speaks only as of the date indicated. Any projections, estimates, forecasts, targets, prospects, and/or opinions expressed in these materials are subject to change without notice and may differ or be contrary to opinions expressed by others.